Hey everyone, I'm just going to show you a design I put together for the RC4WD Drive Blazer. It's basically a camper cap, if you will, and I'm going to be assembling it for those who want to print it and just to give you an idea how it goes together. So have a look at this. So this basically is the stock RC4WD Drive Blazer body, well, aside from my special front grille. And here you go is the camper that goes on it. It basically is a pretty much perfect fit, along with a special bumper attachment, if you will. The door will open and the stairs come down. As you can see, this is my prototype. I had to make some adjustments, but generally this is what it is. So it should fit right onto the Blazer. Screws onto this. Oh, there goes the hood. Screws onto these mounting holes here. There are holes for the body right here. So the body posts will go through, and you could basically still attach the body the same way you normally would. So let's get to building. Now inside part of the files, you're going to see a sink with basically some heating elements for your cooking stuff. But you need to make a faucet. Obviously 3D printing something this small isn't really that doable, maybe with a resin printer and that, but it's kind of small. So basically I used a nail with a head of this type, and depending on the size of the nail you use, you might have to make the hole a little bit bigger, like I'm gonna have to do here. But basically you get a nail that's approximately 3 inches, and you bend it according to what you want it to look like for your sink. Obviously, before you do any assembly of the interior, you might want to paint it, but I'm not going to paint it for this particular video. There we go. That's more like it. Now that might be a little bit large, but still looks kind of cool. Okay, so it's a little loose, so I'm going to put a dab of glue there on the inside. Okay, so we'll put this aside and we'll start assembling the main cabinet. Okay, so here we have the 3 main pieces. Obviously I've already removed all the supports. There's places to put the M3 nuts on all 4 corners, basically on the other side of this. And on this side, the nuts go here. At the bottom of the rear piece, it's a piece like this with the square nuts. These pieces won't show because what I just showed you before, the cabinet goes like this, so it basically covers it up. So clean up your prints as much as you can. A lot of the stuff won't show because of the framing. That's the wrong side. Now the framing you can print any color you want. You can print anything any color you want for that matter. But this basically should snap in, and if it doesn't snap in, then maybe you just need to trim a little bit of the casing to get it to fit. Because if it's too tight, then it's gonna bubble up. But you see, that's a nice fit, and you see none of the rough finish of the window frame is actually showing. Okay, so the window template, you basically put it on your plexiglass or your Lexan sheet or whatever you want. Put it on, draw it out, cut it, and then you just need to trim and make it fit. So basically the mid piece, which is this centerpiece of the whole camper, you can drill out the holes to 3mm, because otherwise you're going to have trouble getting the screws through. So all the holes in the cabin itself can be reamed out or drilled out to 3mm. Obviously the screw goes in no problems. But to get the nut in, you basically place it as best you can. And then use the screw to actually get it to seat properly. There we go. Now ideally you want to put all the nuts in before you try to start assembling it. When I printed, after it cooled down, it warped a little bit. So it's got a little bit of a curve here. So as you can see, it doesn't seat exactly properly, but that won't matter because you're going to be doing body work on it anyways, right? So for here, you're going to use some M3 by 10mm socket cap, preferably, because you can go and put them in with your screwdriver without a problem. So that's screw number 1. Now, don't tighten it in all the way just yet. And once you got all the screws in, and you can tighten it up. Now up here, what you're going to do is you're going to tighten it up bit by bit. Try and get rid of as much of the gap as possible, but don't overdo it because you're going to snap the mounts. And generally, you should be able to pretty much get it close. Now, you see what I mean? It broke. So obviously, do not over tighten. Now I can glue that back in. So it's better to leave a gap. I mean, you can still fix this, but it's better to leave a gap or sand it down so that it's all flush before assembly. So I'm going to glue this back together, and I'll be right back. So I added some glue. I'm going to let that dry and I'll tighten it up a little later, but I won't over tighten it again. This is going to, split like that, but once you glue it into place, it won't move anymore, obviously. Now down here, you can install the bottom brackets. Normally these will snap in and stay there. So those are M3 by 8mm nuts. They're not quite 8mm, but they are classified as 8mm. And then you need M3 flatheads. So M3 by 6mm flatheads. Again, do not over tighten. Because if you over tighten, you're going to crack this section here. All these brackets and screws and that are just to help you with the lining and getting the body work and prep work done, so that, you know, once it's all glued together and that. But this is definitely going to help you with the alignments and holding it together while you do the putty and body work. So there we go. See, that's pretty much taken care of. I'll put the other parts in. So that's basically what that looks like on the inside. These ones are difficult to put in. What you're going to need is a shorter screwdriver. Now you can't really see what I'm doing, but there we go, it's better. Now if you have a really long screwdriver, you can do it from the front window here. Again, do not over tighten. So there, we have the main body. Now over here, I was supposed to put a 5mm magnet in before assembly. I guess I'm gonna have to put it in now. So in the door, I've already installed the 5mm. But what you need to do on the inside of the cab here is it's got to be the right direction, because you know magnets have a north and south. If you try to put it south, it doesn't. It's like it pushes away. So you want to make sure you're putting it in the right direction. So that's going to go in that way. So the door handle is basically a Tamiya 6mm ball joint or ball link with the hex base. You can attach it with a 3mm M3 nut. The door goes in bottom side first, and you basically bend it in order to get it into the top, like so. You don't want to over bend it because you're going to break the bottom piece. So just enough to get the door. Now for the bodywork, basically the filler and basically glue that's going to hold this together. You can use ABS plastic, but since I have ABS filament, I cut a bunch of it, basically put it in a jar and added some MEK, methyl ethyl ketone. I'm not even going to try to say that. So you can basically mix it to the consistency that you want. If you want it thicker, then you add more ABS. If you want it thinner, then you can add more MEK into the jar. I think I got the mix that I want. a word of warning about the Meek solvent. It's extremely, extremely toxic. So you really need to be in a well-ventilated area in order to be able to use it. So cut yourself a few pieces of cardboard in order to basically use this to spread it. See, that's pretty liquidy. So there's one thing that I do before applying it is on the inside I will put some tape on all the joints so that it doesn't just leak through. So I've got the tape inside and on all the joints. Mostly. Now we just have to apply it on the outside here and spread it out. Now, when you're doing this, make sure this is flush. Now don't try to put too much on at once. Put some on, let it dry, and basically keep doing that until you've achieved what you want to, or plug the holes and so on and so forth. So I have a seam right here. I'm going to put some on there too. Basically fills in the holes and helps you with the bodywork later on. Again, make sure everything is already even before you let it dry. It actually dries fairly quickly. Well, it settles fairly quickly, but it takes a little bit of time to dry throughout. Now there's certain areas where you need to be a little careful when adding too much. Here there's a cut or a groove that needs to be there because it needs to fit inside the body. So you just need to be a bit more careful with that. Adding just a little bit at a time. In fact, I'm not even going to put any in that groove. What we're going to do is we're going to do it inside the truck, inside the body of the camper, because on the inside it won't matter because it's not even going to be seen. Now, pay particular attention here. There's two little sections here that are notches for the steps. Be careful not to fill those in. Now you can actually cover the screws with this stuff because they're never going to be taken out anyways. Okay, so that basically needs to dry. Another thing you can do is on 3D prints, when there's a curve like this, there's always little steps. Now you can either just sand them off, or you can actually add some putty in here to help you with that later on. If you wanted to, you could do this on the whole body and make it a little bit easier for you to finish sanding in the end. And you might need to put a few coats on it for this to really actually take effect properly. Also, this ABS putty, if you will, is a lot easier to sand than the actual PETG. So now that the first coat on all the joints is done, we can take off the tape on the inside. And it didn't go through, not at that part anyways. Let's see about over here. And see, that was just a precaution. It didn't go through, but if it did, the tape would have stopped it and made a proper seam right off the bat. Now if you want to make it even stronger, you can go ahead and put more on the inside seams. All on the inside here. If you want, you could add more. You're going to need to add more on the outside for sure, because I don't know if you can see it in the video, but it's sort of indented, which is normal. Any putty or finishing stuff would do that. Now the lights here are designed for 10mm LEDs, which is basically these guys. And once they're put in, once you've cleaned out your holes and all that, you can push them in. Yeah, let me put them all in and show you how it would look. And there you go. So, I mean, if you wanted, you could put all red, 2 red and orange. Basically, my thought was red for brake light, white for backup, and orange for turn signal. Now, you could always use another red for the turn signal. And you could put them any way you want. You could put the brake lights on the outside, flashers, turn signals on the inside, and so on and so forth. So before putting the interior in, we have to put in the nuts that are going to hold this onto the body. So they're basically M3 hex. As you can see, this nut is going into its place. And it shouldn't come out. Okay, so I'm going to put these other ones in because it's kind of hard to show you while I'm doing it. It's basically where the red piece is here. So right behind it, there's another one of those areas where the nut goes, and the same thing on the opposite side over here. Okay, so I've got all the nuts in. Now I can go ahead and put the other parts inside. Time to get the seats in. To install the steps, you got to clean up this little piece here. This basically goes right in here. Now, obviously, this part needs to be nice and clean for it to do that. If there's any supports or whatever, they need to be removed. And on the steps, as with most prints, on the circle, on the round part here, it didn't exactly print round because these are printed this way and with supports. And with supports, often it basically creates a little lip which you need to clean up. Alright, so basically put this on here. Put this side into the hole on this side. Then you slide this down. So for the windows, what you're going to do, I'm only going to show you one window. Now, this is a bit thick, but this is a thick sheet of Lexan. So you can basically go like this. Take your marker. And that's basically what you need to cut out. Now you can do it different ways, I guess. If your material is thin enough, you can do it with scissors. I'm going to go ahead and cut it with my my bandsaw. Alright, so I cut and trimmed it. Just need to get rid of the burrs. Now you have a little bit of room to play because the lip is 2 millimeters all the way around. I'm just trying to get rid of the lip that was created from the heat and the friction from my sander. Let's see if we can get this paper off. Alright, not the best, but you get the idea. So now you're going to want to put the door in before putting this into the door, but I'm going to put it in just to show you. Now, it's a little bit of a tight fit, but a little bit more trimming will take care of that. I think you get the general idea. Obviously you're going to need to glue this on once you're done trimming and fitting. Same thing for the other ones. Front one. The windows and trim obviously is going to be one of the last things you do. Just make sure everything fits before gluing it all in, obviously. I'm just going to screw it onto the truck and see how that looks. Now my bumper is already mounted. Again, this was the one of the prototypes. Now it looks kind of funny like that, but once the thing is the body, once the cap is on, it looks pretty good. As you can see here. So let's go ahead screw these on. See, it's nice and snug along the edge here. Nice and tight here. Very, very close to the roof. So all in all, it's a pretty good fit.